Once again, we got Ryan Johnson. I'm Scott Bradley, working with sales here on Fusion 360 and our cloud solutions for D3. And before we get into the full webinar, I did want to go over our Fusion Velocity program here with D3. It is our training and technical support specifically designed for Fusion 360 users. We've developed curriculum over, I think, 15 different classes now, discussing everything from just an intro to the UI, all the way down to CAM, of course, the rendering, parts, parametric modeling, just kind of running the full gamut of solutions within Fusion 360. The backbone of this program is our CAD Live system, which allows all of our customers throughout the United States to teach in a collaborative environment remotely through CAD Live. So it's our live instructor-led education program, and it's created to be a very interactive classroom environment, but able to help everyone save on scheduling and cost of travel. So through Fusion Velocity, it's an unlimited access to all of our training programs, our training classes that we have for Fusion scheduled throughout the year. It's a 12-month program, and also unlimited for the CAD technical support as well. So our customers can register for a class, log in, take the course with us, and then go back to work. So we have a couple of requirements. So it is live interactive, so we want to be able to see the customers. Customers can see us. Everybody we do have on a microphone or a good phone connection, so we can hear everyone clearly. A couple of requirements as far as internet, monitors, webcam, pretty basic stuff. So it's a great system that we've put in place. We're having some great feedback and being very productive for Fusion 360. And then that's all that I had on that, Ryan. And I'm going to change this back over to Ryan Johnson here and let him go into the presentation for the industrial design with Fusion 360.
All right, thanks, Scott. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we've got you up.
Okay, and it looks like I'm muted in the meeting. I can't unmute myself.
Well, let me take a look.
I can hear you just fine, Ryan.
Yeah, I don't think you're muted, Ryan.
Okay. All right. Must be a glitch in the system. It's showing me muted, but if you guys can hear me all right, I'll go right on ahead. All right. So welcome, everybody. As Scott mentioned in the intro, we're just going to kind of go through some workflows typical of industrial design environment. We're going to take a look at some of the freeform environment. We're going to take a look at modeling right over sketches and canvases. We're also going to take a little bit of time in parametrics. There's really a lot of different ways to design in Fusion 360. So first thing that I'm going to do is open my data panel. So in preparation for this webinar, I kind of walked through the office and just looked around at different items in the office that I thought, would make a good design project. And I just picked an office chair. So we're going to go through the design of this chair that I have shown right here. This will be kind of the final product. Something like this anyways. Once it opens. Yeah, so we're going to talk about using the freeform tools to build some of this. A lot of it's parametric. Some of the design I didn't even model. I pulled out of a catalog of parts. And so we'll kind of take a look at that. The first thing I'm going to do is talk about canvas sketches. So a lot of times an idea starts just with some sketches, maybe on a piece of paper, which is what I have right here. So I'm going to use a tool inside of Fusion 360 that lets you scan an image or, grab a digital image that you've created. And in this case, I just sat down at my desk and sketched up some ideas for what I might want this chair to look like. So, I started just kind of with a side profile and started looking at some different shapes for the bases, maybe some different seat designs. The problem traditionally when working with canvases is that it's really hard to size them accurately. In Fusion 360, we have a cool tool where we can calibrate the canvas. And so I happen to know maybe from here to here on my chair should be exactly 18 inches. Now, if I designed kind of tracing over this model right now, it would be less than 1/4 of an inch wide. Obviously the wrong size. So we'll just scale this up to 18 inches. And now I have an accurately sized sketch that I can start modeling over. I'm also going to edit this a little bit positionally. I want to kind of center this chair that I'm working on right around the origin. Maybe adjust the angle of it to flatten it out. Just kind of get it centered. So this is really useful if you've sat down ahead of time and sketched out some ideas and you want to use those to help guide you as you're modeling the design. We're going to take a look at a different workflow next, which involves actually creating dimensional sketches to start the design. But often this is a quick, easy way to go from your ideas to 3D model. So what I'm going to use is the Freeform environment here, and we'll just create a box form right on this face, and I'll just pick the center point and we'll draw a box about that size. Now we can control the initial size of this form pretty precisely here. We can also adjust the how complicated it is. I want some extra edges to grab. If you haven't seen this Freeform environment, what we're getting ready to do is take this blocky square shape and kind of turn it into a more sculpted design. So let's just add an extra face this direction. And as you can see, as we add additional faces, we kind of hold the shape a little bit more. But we can always add and remove faces at any time in this environment inside of Fusion 360. Right. So I'll call that good for my starting shape. Actually, let's change this. I want it to be a little bit wider. Okay, it doesn't really matter because what I'm going to do as I get to the design environment is start pushing and pulling edges. And the shape just kind of changes with that. Problem is this needs to be symmetric, so I can easily add symmetry just by clicking on two opposite sides of the design. And now when I make a change to one side, the exact change happens on the other side as well. So we'll just kind of move that in. Maybe we'll grab these edges in the middle and move them down a little bit. And just thicken that up a little bit. So this freeform design is pretty awesome in Fusion 360. It lets you just kind of grab stuff and move it around to change the shape. Maybe I just want to grab that corner and pull it in a little bit to give a little bit more curved shape to my design. We'll take all these front edges and just kind of scale them in a little bit. Now I also want to use this on the back of the chair. So we'll go ahead and grab all these faces, and what we're going to do is just quickly pull vertically a copy of these faces. And we'll get some more definition in that direction. So as you can see, this is it's kind of freeform. It's not super dimensionally accurate, but we are able to grab our model and just kind of follow the sketch and use that to define what we want the final product to look like. It's pretty flexible. It's pretty quick. I think the main benefit is how quick this is. We can quickly go through some ideas and what traditionally would take a lot longer to model, we can just kind of explore with those forms. Now, this thing that I built, I can take straight into, when I finish this form, a 3D solid. It is a 3D solid. You saw how quick it was to build that. If I were to try to build out sketches and loft that, much longer for that process. So for this sort of exploratory kind of industrial design, especially modeling over sketches, is pretty awesome. So I could do that and build out a few additional shapes if I want, but I'm going to kind of jump away from this method. And what we're going to do is actually open another design. So in this case, I've kind of used a different approach. In this case, maybe I know very specific dimensions and shapes and forms that I want my design to follow. And that was the case with the base. I decided after looking at all my sketches here that I liked this kind of partially rounded with this angle on the front of it. So I kind of converted that into what the design might look like in a bunch of 2D sketches. So we have the size, the diameter, we have the height of the chair, and I've even modeled kind of the chair back right here. So with this same method, we're going to go into that freeform environment. This is pretty cool. We can start with that dimensionally accurate model and use something like a pipe to quickly build a model. And we'll make that round in about a 3-inch diameter, maybe a 2-inch diameter. We'll go ahead and close the ends off so that we have these nice square ends. And I really don't want that many segments. I want it to be easier to modify the form. So you can see as we drag this around, we control how tightly are we actually following that geometric stuff that we made with our freeform shapes. Pretty quickly, I can get a nice starting point here. So I might use those same editing tools just to kind of scale some of these shapes around and explore what might happen if the shape was modified in different ways. Again, I do want symmetry, so let me add symmetry from one side to the other. That way, any changes that I make would happen to both sides, speeding up my design process a lot. This is my initial design, but at this point I'm starting to wonder maybe if some of these other sketches that I made would look better. So to me, this is one of the huge strengths of Fusion 360. If you're using this freeform environment, we can very quickly iterate on our designs. I'm just literally copy pasting, and we'll copy paste and create a couple different copies of that. And this allows me to kind of explore side by side. What happens if I made that a lot bigger right here? And then maybe in this version I want to explore what if we actually pull the form up in between where the wheels are going to set. Gives it a much different look, but really almost the same base shape. And then what if I took this one over here and maybe rotate that out? We'll just do, instead of that round, what if we had like a straighter edge? So obviously, I could spend as much time as I want kind of cleaning this up and altering the shape to see what would happen in different cases. Like what if we made it thicker right there? Or what if we took this connection point and moved it out, made it a lot thicker right there? So with some quick forming, we now have several different versions that we might look at. Now I'm going to do the same thing up here on the top with the chair. This time, instead of just starting with a block, I'm actually going to do an extrusion. And I'm going to extrude this shape that I modeled We'll make it a symmetric extrusion for 10 inches each direction for a total of 20 inches wide. And, maybe I want to adjust the number of faces that I'm creating. So this is a freeform shape, but I've started just with a plane built directly off of my 2D sketch. And I can now start modifying this form as well. Let's add our symmetry back in there. Maybe pull that corner in, rotate it a little bit. At any time, I can add more edges for more definition, just like I did before. We also have a tool here to insert extra edges, so maybe I want some more curve on the back. With this extra set of edges, I'm able to add some different curvature to the design. So let's go ahead and pull this down a little bit and back a little bit. Give kind of that bucket shape to our seat. Now you could spend as much time as you want modifying this kind of stuff. I'm going to go ahead and stop right there and thicken this. So we can take any shape that we've built if it's a single surface, and I'm going to go ahead and just make it an inch thick, and we'll make soft edges. Let's go a little bit thicker. Okay. So maybe a similar shape to that first one that I built with blocks, but in this case I'm starting with a 3D or with a 2D sketch, extruding it, and then I'm able to modify the form as needed while it's a surface, or even when it becomes a solid object. Now, what if I don't like that shape? Well, I can copy paste just like I did before, and maybe explore some different chair shapes as well. So what if we had a version where the sides winged out instead of going at an angle, maybe even pointed a little bit. And again, I'm still in the ideation phase. What I'm getting ready to do is to pull this into a collaboration environment where I can have some other stakeholders in this design kind of comment on what they like or what they don't like. So just to get ready for that, I'll do one other thing. I'm going to delete some faces here and here. And I'm going to create a bridge between those. All right, so maybe pull that down and make it a little bit thicker. Maybe we have kind of a hole for a handle inside of one of the versions. All right, you'll notice if I'm going to pop open another design that I spent a little bit more time on, so you don't have to watch the weeds grow. We got a couple of different base options that I kind of liked, as well as some different chair versions. So what I'm going to do now, we will come back into the modeling environment in just a bit in Fusion, but maybe at a point where I need some feedback from my team. Before I get into too much detail on the design, I'm going to stop and send it out for comments. You'll notice every design that you build in Fusion, it shows up in your data panel here on the side. But we also have the ability to view more details about that by clicking on the little version button. We also have the ability to open the details for any design on the web. And so what I've done is clicked on that open details in web, and we're actually going to see this 3D model that I was working on in Fusion. It's called Fusion ID Chair Options. And we get a 3D view of that that opens up right in our web browser. So there's a lot of tools inside of, this is what we call Fusion Team. If your company has a Fusion Team Hub, which you should have if you're using Fusion 360, every design that you create in Fusion 360 also has a counterpart on the web where we can do a lot of other cool things. For example, you can see 3D views are available. We have the ability to mark up the design, do different measurements. Maybe we want to see what the height is to the base of that chair. There's our height, our total length, and our delta in each direction. We have section analyses, so we could add a plane in the X direction and kind of see what the cross section looks like on these different chairs. Some of them are thicker or thinner than others. If a model has multiple pieces, you can also explode it into pieces to see how it's built. Now at this stage, we're still kind of in the design phase, as I mentioned. So I may want to mark up the design or add some comments. In this case, let's go ahead and add a comment. And I'm just going to comment on the object right here. And what I would like to do is I want to get Scott Bradley's feedback. So I'm going to go ahead and just mention him with an @ I'm going to say, @Scott, I need some feedback. And which direction do you think we should take this? We'll go ahead and post that comment. So as soon as I post this, Scott actually will get a notification in his email. He could respond. He can click on a link in his email. It will take him right here to this Fusion Team design. This is a link in a web browser. You don't need a viewer. You don't necessarily even need Fusion 360 in order to participate in this design. If you're part of the Team Hub, you have the ability to participate in that. So another cool thing that I really like is if you've commented on something, if you click on that comment notification, it takes you back to the exact view orientation and highlights that showed up when I created the design. So there's no question about what I'm asking about. We also can use the markup tools down here to add different markups. We might say, like, that's way too large. We might throw some text in there. I'm just going to do a big line and say, nope, that one is not good. And you can actually save your markups. They become comments in the design. So while I'm in Fusion Team, I'm going to also jump back to the Overview tab. We were looking at the 3D model, but in the Overview, we'll see later on a lot more details inside of a design that's more completed. But we do see a kind of overview of the design, anything that's going on with it, any related data, any comments and versions that were created. We can also view previous versions of any file. So if you need to kind of watch how the process has evolved over time, it's available. Okay. Now, Scott, I don't know if you made any comments on that. Okay. And I did have, oh, there you go. I had a couple versions of this file, so I wondered if Scott was commenting on the wrong one, but there you go. Scott says, hey, Ryan, you should try to bring the seat forward on the base. Okay, awesome. And that was in response to this comment right here. Now I'm going to jump back to Fusion 360. I am on the web view for this item, but even inside of Fusion 360, we can view comments on any design. So if I'm working in Fusion 360 and I've sent a request the exact same way I did in Fusion Team there, I've sent a request to Scott for some feedback. I could even do it right here. And Scott has responded. Even if my comments area is closed, I could get a notification that there's a new comment on the item. And I can click to view what's going on with that design. So here's the snapshot I commented on and requested feedback. And Scott Bradley's going to feedback. It's going to show up right there. So whether you're working inside of Fusion 360 or whether you're using this web view of the exact same design, you get the same ability to get that whole team feedback. I might mention while I'm here, even if somebody's not on your team and have access to the full collaboration, marking it up and everything, you can share links to your designs for anybody to see, even if they're not a part of your team hub, which is pretty awesome. So when we get to our finished product, this would be a much more useful type of thing. We can also do a live review where I might actually even have Bradley looking at the same model with me as I orbit. His screen orbits. So it's a way to do a review without having to have like remote desktop software or a GoToMeeting or something like that. You can do it right through the web browser. So for industrial design type stuff, I think that's pretty important. There's a lot of points in the design where you're going through a lot of ideas and you need to get some team feedback and buy-in on your design before you move forward on it. Now, so far, all of the design we did was freeform. It was pushing and pulling edges, doing that kind of sculpting environment. There are times when we need to do more accurate design, even on the industrial design side. And we can definitely do that inside of Fusion as well. So I'm going to take a look at a couple of different tools here. Let's go ahead and we'll just go ahead and scrap those guys. We decided we didn't like them. I'll finish the form. I'm now back in my regular 3D modeling environment inside of Fusion 360. So there's a full like multi-body modeling environment. There's full assembly environment. All that stuff is in here. We're just going to take a look at a couple of additional things we might add to the design. Now, I'm going to talk about the mounting plate right here between these two pieces. So let's take a look at my origin planes are down there. Maybe I need to add a mounting bracket. So I'm going to do a quick offset plane from the ground. I'm just going to move up here. We'll say 17 should be the height. And I'm going to hide the chair for a second and the base. And what we've done is just created a new work plane. I'm actually going to do some sketching, some parametric sketching. So go ahead and create a sketch on that work plane. And if we turn this on and the chair on, we can see we're actually just kind of centered right on that base. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and add a circle. We'll do a 3-inch, 2-inch diameter. And we'll do another circle. And then I'll do a centered rectangle. That's maybe 8 by 8. So we do have full parametric sketching, and here's we'll just add a quick 1/4-inch dimension. This is going to be kind of the mount that connects the base to the chair. And what I would like to do, I'm just going to stay in multi-body here, but I could go ahead and do additional assembly components depending on how my design is going. I'll go ahead and just extrude upward, kind of in that direction. I'll do a 3/8 inch thick. Now I don't want to cut my model. I actually want to add a new solid body, a plate that's going to mount that. And we'll go ahead and use that same sketch, and we'll extrude down maybe 2 more inches. All right. Additionally, I'm going to add some fillets to this plate and some mounting holes. I'll just go with 1-inch fillets. And let's do a quick sketch so we can build all 4 of our holes at once. We'll just throw some center points in here. Rename my bodies. It's called the plate. And now I'm going to use my hole tool to just place holes on all 4 of those points. We'll do the diameter at 1/2 inch with a depth of 3/4. So this is actually going to cut into the plate. And additionally, I can control what it cuts, but I want it to cut through the seat and the plate. It's actually going to build my plate and the seat. And next I'm going to do a combine where I take this seat and I cut the plate out of it. So now I have a nice mounting area for that plate. So I could take this a lot further, but I just wanted to throw a quick kind of a mechanical type piece in there. You do have the complete ability to build, if you have real world constraints you're needing to design around, you can throw quick pieces in like this very easily and quickly. And we now have like a more accurate description of what that design might look like in the end, or what components be required. I could take this plate, even, once I'm done with that, let's go ahead and isolate that. We're not getting into this in this webinar, but you do have the full CAM environment. So a lot of our Fusion users are actually doing CAM right inside of the program. If you needed to, like maybe we just are looking at the plate and we just need to get some paths to machine that off of, you got your full CAM tools there. So being the industrial design webinar, we're not going to get too deep into that, but you definitely have the ability to jump into CAM with this type of design. All right, another thing that I wanted to look at briefly here was the ability to grab components that are already modeled and throw them into your design. In this case, I have some casters that are going to go around the bottom. I don't want to model these. I'm not going to build them in my own shop. We're just going to pull them out of a catalog and assemble them with our chair. So in this case, I'm actually going to insert a component from a McMaster car. We could also insert other parts from parts for CAD. But I happen to know that there's a ton of very common casters in McMaster Car's library. So we'll just go ahead and search caster. We get a lot of categories. We can click anything to filter by that category. We'll go into casters, and I want a stem caster because it's going to bolt into connect into that base piece. So we have a lot of different ones here. Let's go with a nylon light duty swivel caster. And in this in this configuration so far, we have 2 3/8 and 4-inch. I'm going to go ahead with the black plastic one right here. Once you find the product you want, if you go to the product detail, you can actually just click Save for a format that you want to insert into Fusion 360, and it will create that component and drop it right into your design. So all I'm going to do here is, let's see, rotate the thing. 90 degrees this way, and we'll rotate it this way. And then we'll just kind of drag it visually into place. Again, in the end, I probably want this constrained in a full assembly environment, but right now I'm just kind of doing a conceptual design. So this is a little bit off. So close is good enough to see how it's going to look in my final environment. I did want to look briefly also at the direct modeling environment in Fusion 360. So maybe this model is pretty close, but we happen to know that we're going to have a modified version with a much longer shaft length right there. Cool thing about Fusion 360, we have the freeform environment you already saw. We have the parametric environment where we built the plate, and we also have a direct modeling capability. So I can take this design and just grab all those faces, and let's do a move faces. And let's just grab the faces we want to move and literally just pull them up, stretch that thing out a little bit. So maybe we're starting with something that's pretty close, but we know we're going to get a modified version of it. We can easily do that. We'll just do a quick circular pattern of this guy. We want to pattern our components around this axis, and we want, let's do 5 of them. There you go. So it's pretty quick to just drop that component in and see how our design is going to look with that caster. Maybe we have a couple different ones as I have up here in the browser. We're going to look at some different options. But you definitely have the ability to pull stuff that's pre-made right into your designs and save a lot of time that way. So I'm going to open the model that you saw at the beginning. This is kind of my finished version. So I've done a little bit more work here on this plate and getting it chamfered as we need to. We've added some additional details to the base. We've added a nice caster with little rubber wheels. And instead of like a cushiony soft chair, I decided to do like a wood panel plastic foam sandwich thing or something. So in this design, a little bit different, I've actually referenced components from the model into the design instead of modeling it all in one place. Very easy if you have a component you've already used somewhere else to literally just drag it and drop it into your design to create a linked copy. So, and the last thing that I wanted to look at here, if we've gone through all that design work, quick iterations, we've got a design that we like, we've got approval on, and we now need to take a look at the rendering environment. So rendering environment is pretty cool. We can literally just drag and drop materials from a huge library that's mostly cloud-based here and drop them straight onto our model. So maybe we don't like this textured plastic on the base and we want a different plastic. We can drag and drop straight onto that component. In this case, I actually modeled the components in a separate environment. So what I'm going to do is open this chair and open the base. So if I want a different material here, all I need to do is find that material that I'm looking for. Maybe we want to go with a powder coat green. So I'll download that real quick, drag it and drop it. There it is. I'm taking a look at the seat. Maybe I don't like that wood grain and I want to try a different wood grain. Again, drag and drop and replace the material. We also have ability in the rendering environment to very easily change the mapping of anything with a texture, like this would. So I've got the texture kind of out here. I can drag it until that stripe is a little bit different. Maybe rotate the angle of my texture. And then even maybe that middle stripe, I've decided that instead of that bright green, I want something maybe like a clear plastic or something. So let's drop some acrylic right onto that piece and maybe see what it would look like, or some amber phenolic. Now in the rendering environment, we have two modes to use this. We can actually do it in Canvas render, where we just render exactly what's on our screen using our own computer's resources. And so all we have to do is click the in-canvas render. To start that, you'll notice it starts out at a pretty grainy. And by the way, I just undid the changes that I made to the model. I'll come back to the one that I set up ahead of time. And so as you let it sit here and resolve, the render just gets clearer and clearer until you're left with a full quality rendering. Now you see a bunch down here that I've already pre-rendered in the gallery. And so what I used for these, actually just this morning, I decided that I wanted some renderings down there. And so I just hit render right here, and I actually picked the cloud render. So with Fusion 360, I submitted all of these renderings at once, and then I closed the file and went on to my next task. So cloud rendering is pretty awesome if you just want to render a bunch of images, but you don't want to wait for your computer to process those. You can go from this, kind of realistic model view to a much more realistic, fully rendered image. And once again, I'm actually going to go to the web view for this part on my Fusion Team Hub. This design has gone through a lot more of the process, and it's a lot more complete. So we see our rendering, not our rendering, our 3D view here where we did the comments before. But I'm going to go back to the overview. So some additional things you get, we know what parts this uses if it references some external components. So I actually have two versions of the seat in that model. Where it's used, any drawings that are created of it. And then I can quickly jump to any of those components. So it's a pretty nice as far as some basic data management to see where parts are used in what designs. You can quickly jump back and forth between parts that are in Fusion Team. Additionally, you can see all the renderings down here. So any renderings that I've generated off of this design, anybody in Fusion Team will be able to see those full quality renderings as well. This could be pretty cool from a collaboration standpoint. Instead of sending a 3D model, you might send some nice looking, more realistic renderings that took you literally, 5 minutes to create because you dropped some materials on there, sent it to the cloud, and now you're sending these images out for people's feedback instead of the entire 3D model. So that's my final design right here. In this case, I started with a sketch. I built surfaces off of that, and this was not really as much of the freeform. I used a freeform for the base on the final design in Fusion. And then I used parametric sketching and modeling for this plate. So this design actually is a good example of using all three of those environments, plus pulling in manufacturing content, getting the renderings and everything out of those. It's all part of the, possible workflow inside of Fusion 360. So that's about what I had to share with everyone. Anybody has any questions, you can throw them in there in the comment box. Scott Bradley, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. And just to wrap things up here, we are going to have these webinars. So we've got a series of CAM webinars we're working on. We're going to do more along industrial design, R&D, and really showcase the rest of these tool sets with the Fusions 360. Follow us along on our socials, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We will have these videos up on our YouTube channel as well. And I know that we're working on some quick 3 to 5 minute videos just to go over certain topics that we get support calls on. We have customers asking us questions routinely, and also, we pay attention to the forum. So things that do pop up, we'll just hop in and throw some information. So make sure you follow us on our socials. And that's all we have. Thanks, everyone.